showing representation of community. To that end, I want to make sure I don't forget to receive and file the presentation. So I'm just going to go ahead and move that we receive and file. All in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed. I'm a little cognizant of the hour, and so this is not that I don't think council members don't have questions, but I think that these presentations allow us to kind of start that relationship, or not, I shouldn't say start it, because frankly, for all of these organizations, there are existing relationships, not just with policymakers, but with staff, but that we utilize this information as a way for us to kind of continue the conversation with the experts who are doing a lot of work. We do have two items that I wanted to make sure that we get in front of us to vote on today. One is a resolution, and a second is a staff direction. And so I think I will go ahead and first lead us through the resolution, and that's then when people might have some comment after that before we vote, or questions that might come out after that. So I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution just so that those who are watching can also understand what we're about to vote on today. This is, again, a resolution condemning the 2017 presidential executive orders on immigration enforcement and refugees. Whereas, with the exception of indigenous people and people who were enslaved or otherwise forced to migrate to the United States, all Minnesotans are immigrants or descended from immigrants who came to the United States. And whereas Minneapolis celebrates and supports immigrants, asylees, and refugees who have made their home in our city, and thanks them for their contributions to the culture and economy of Minneapolis. And whereas Minneapolis is home to the largest Somali American community in the United States and is proud to be the first city in the country to designate a sister city relationship with Somalia. And whereas Minneapolis has supported the rights of all residents through such initiatives as its separation ordinance, which separates local police work from that of federal immigration authorities, and became the first city in the United States to declare support for President Barack Obama's DREAM Act policy, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And whereas on December 7th, 2015, Donald J. Trump, as a candidate for the Republican nomination of President of the United States, announced his intention for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. And whereas on January 27, 2017, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order entitled Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the United States, which bars people from the Muslim majority countries of Iraq, Syria, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. And whereas on January 25, 2017, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order with its stated purpose as barring any federal funds not mandated by law from any jurisdiction designated by the United States Attorney General as a sanctuary jurisdiction. And whereas on January 25, 2017, President Donald J. Trump also signed an executive order that directed federal funds be used to build a wall on the southern border of the United States with Mexico. And whereas elected council members and the mayor of Minneapolis have sworn an oath to uphold the United States Constitution and laws of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Minnesota, and the ordinances of the city of Minneapolis, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the city of Minneapolis, that the city of Minneapolis hereby condemns President Trump's executive order banning immigration from Muslim majority countries as an open act of discrimination against Muslims, as a violation of the United States Constitution, and as an illegal act in violation of federal laws and directives, and that the city of Minneapolis objects to attempts to impose federal control over local jurisdictions' ability to represent, protect, and keep safe the residents in their cities as unconstitutional attempts to commandeer local resources and coerce the city to enforce federal administration policy related to immigration laws. and that the City of Minneapolis objects to the diversion of federal funds to build a wall on the southern border of the United States with Mexico, and objects to the executive orders of January 25th, 2017 as antithetical to our American values and offensive, humiliating, and race-based attacks against the country of Mexico and its people. And that the City of Minneapolis is resolved in urging the members of the Minnesota congressional delegation to actively condemn, oppose, and object to the executive orders issued January 25th and 27th, 2017 on immigration enforcement and refugees. And so I will move this resolution, and I will ask for any discussion on the resolution. Councilmember Andrew Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really appreciate you bringing this resolution forward. I agree with all of it. I'd love to be added as a co-author, and then would just like to say that I was really disgusted by these executive orders. We're a free nation. People should be able to freely travel in and out of our nation. We should take our nation's security seriously, but I don't believe that these whatsoever were aimed at that. In fact, I think that the President's has made it pretty clear that this is about targeting our Muslim residents, our Muslim citizens of the world. I think that's even readily apparent in just his refusal to acknowledge the terrorist attack in Quebec, yet also focusing on other incidents around the world, kind of picking and choosing what he wants to highlight in order to try to justify this, what I believe is unconstitutional and anti-American and anti-democratic executive orders. And further, even on the wall, I think it's for so many reasons, it's offensive, but even just the fact of spending $20 billion on a wall that can be defeated with medieval technology such as ladders and ropes is just ridiculous and is only clearly just appealing to people's fears and a campaign talking point. So I'm happy that we're taking a stand on these issues, and I hope that the President can choose to focus on actually bringing Americans together and actually addressing real issues that are affecting our communities.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I really do appreciate you bringing this resolution forward. I think it rings true in a time when we're experiencing a whole lot of hate in our nation, and I would also like to add my name. You know, Donald Trump can say whatever he wants. He can put whatever he wants into an executive order. But Donald Trump cannot undo the Constitution. He cannot undo 100 years of jurisprudence that is built to protect those in the minority. I'm a proud American because I still believe that the ideals of our country, the ideals upon which we were founded, are about inclusivity and welcoming every single religion and background and political belief, welcoming refugees. We are an open nation, and we will continue to be. I will not focus as much on the moral and rightfully emotional arguments that others have beautifully articulated before me, but I do want to touch on a few of the legal sides, because in addition to political and social resistance, we also need some really serious legal resistance as well right now. And the strategy that has been set forth by a combination of our city attorney and Mr. Keller, I really appreciated the explanation. I do have just several major concerns about what these executive orders are calling for. First, it is a total denial of due process when you talk about booting somebody from the country simply because they have been charged with something or haven't even been charged with something. That is the definition of a denial of due process. I mean, this is quite literally the kind of stuff that began World War II in Nazi Germany. And if you're scared, well, we all should be scared, and we should be rising up. This is not a good thing. And furthermore, under Chapter 8, Section 1373, the Supreme Court has said that it is not enforceable. You aren't allowed to withhold funds on the basis of the content unless it's very clear and unambiguous. And every single person who reads it, every single scholar and attorney who reads through the context of the executive order is quite clear. It is not clear. It is completely ambiguous. Nobody knows what they're required to do or not to do, even if they wanted to follow the initial direction, which of course we don't. And furthermore, the notion of commandeering, the fact that we're even using that word in the 10th Amendment is a really scary thing. I mean, I thought this whole notion of commandeering was done with. It was an archaic term that no longer applied to American society. The fact that we're even using this term should make us keenly aware of what's happening next. From, as I said, the political context, the social context, but the legal context as well. We have a constitution here to protect us, and we should be standing by it. And finally, I just have a couple of questions. So San Francisco has already brought a lawsuit, and in bringing a lawsuit, I'm assuming that they are acknowledging their sanctuary city status, even though it's not defined under the executive order. Is that correct, Ms. Siegel?
Madam Chair and Council Member Fry, in their litigation, they cite to campaign speeches and other materials by the president where he has identified San Francisco specifically as a sanctuary city. There are several counts in the complaint, one of which is for a declaratory judgment that the city is not in violation of federal laws. And counts 2 and 3 of the complaint are based on the constitutionality of the executive order and 1373.
Thank you. And I think, Ms. Siegel, you correctly pointed out that this really is a matter of sharing versus gathering. Under the ordinance that was passed in 2003, since we do not gather the information, there is no information to share. And I think we need to be really strategic as to how our city is moving forward. And for that reason, I'm pleased that there's also a staff direction on this exact topic. At the end of the day, I do think it's really critical we're strategic in every single bit of this. We've got some major decisions to make in the next several weeks, and with the legal assistance, I'm sure we'll make the right ones.
Thank you. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, let me thank you for your leadership on this, and I would also like to add my name to the resolution. But I wanted to, I'm not going to talk about the legal aspect as my colleague, Councilman Fry has. I will talk about the moral and the political aspect of the Muslim ban. As the resolution states, our current president in 2015, December 2015, called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. And in his first week, he authorized an executive order that banned 7 majority Muslim countries, citizens from entering the United States. Now, if you take away Iran or the Islamic Republic of Iran, every other country on the list has either gone through a civil war or is going through a civil war, including Somalia, which has since 1991 been going through a civil war, which has totally destroyed all governmental institutions and split the country into many different rival factions with millions of displaced refugees. If you look at Sudan, Sudan itself, the Republic of Sudan, has split into Southern Sudan and Sudan proper, and yet there is still war in Sudan in the Darfur region. If you look at Yemen, there's been a devastating 2-year war, which includes regional players with thousands of people dead, millions displaced, and millions on the verge of hunger. If you look at Libya, NATO intervened in Libya, got rid of Muammar Gaddafi, and yet cannot put it back together again. We also intervened in Iraq, famously in 2003, and we cannot put that country back together again. There is also a civil war in Syria, which continues today, one of the most horrific wars in modern history. So what you have here is not just a ban on Muslim majority countries, you have a ban on the most vulnerable Muslim majority countries in the world. And you have a ban on refugees that would be entering these countries, from these countries. So this is actually a total and utter, targeting of the most vulnerable people in the world right now. And the fact that they are Muslims, and the fact that our current president has stated that he would prefer to bring minorities from these countries, which means that they would not be Muslims, but other minority sects, also indicates that this is a targeting of the Muslim faith. Now, I would conclude that, this is in a way what Donald Trump and his advisors are doing, is they are realizing the false prophecy of Samuel Huntington, which states that we are going to enter a clash of civilizations between the Muslim world and the West. Now imagine, the Muslim world is nearly 2 billion people, 60 countries. Now, if the United States or the Western world went into war with the Muslim majority countries, there will be no world as we know it. So this is very dangerous, and we've entered a very dangerous state. And I, as a child refugee, somebody who grew up as a refugee, it scares me when I see pictures of Alan Kurdi, the Syrian child who drowned on the shores of Turkey, that I was Alan Kurdi at one time. And I'm afraid for my children who were born in the city of Minneapolis. I'm afraid for my wife, who is a practicing Muslim, who covers herself. This is a very scary time. And I would like to thank our residents, our friends. And even though what's even scarier is that the majority of people who have been polled in the United States have indicated that they support this ban. And that scares us even more. So thank you very much for all the presenters and everybody who came, and to Council Vice President Glidden for her work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Warsame. I was at a community meeting this weekend that was, I guess I've been to some large community meetings, but in the wake of these executive orders, this is a smaller community meeting, so it kind of allowed some more personal conversation. And there was a time of reflection where people were talking about what are their fears and what are their feelings. And one comment that just really has sat with me is government wants to erase us. And it's not only is that just a powerful statement of what is people are feeling is happening right now, but it also speaks to me. I'm part of government. What should I be doing in this moment? Because that is truly what people are feeling. Government wants to erase us. The end of last week, I was able to be part of a board meeting for a national organization that I'm part of. It's a membership organization for cities that is called Local Progress. And this is an organization with city council members and mayors that I will tell you proudly say they represent sanctuary cities. And it was a moment to be able to talk with those council members and mayors about what does this moment in time mean for us. And one of the biggest messages I think that we came away with for ourselves is that we need to reach out within our own states, reach out amongst ourselves so that we are continuing to connect those places and those spaces that feel strongly. We represent community, we represent all community, and we're not going to be part of the structure that people feel is trying to erase us. I do believe, I think it was Mr. Hussein who said, this is a moment where the nation is coming together. I believe that is true. I believe that is true. And it's going to take not only these legal strategies or resolutions that are passed by city governments and state governments, but it is a movement of people. And I will say government is never on the front end of that. Government is following the lead of people. And so I want to say thank you to community for showing great leadership. And we're going to continue to follow your lead and work with community to oppose those things that we cannot abide, but also protect the residents that we know depend on us and our services to the extent that we can. So on the resolution, I'm not seeing any further comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'll be brief. I really appreciate the resolution, and I did note that it did call out to our members of Congress, but I'm particularly concerned about some of our other jurisdictions. I know that we have a separation ordinance with clear directions to our police department and how well they should function without cooperating necessarily with Homeland Security officers, but I'm not so sure if the county is following suit. And I got a disturbing email this morning that I just wanted to share. Well, we have this public platform so people might get a better picture of what's going on and what might go on. It says here, Dear Cam, I'm writing as a concerned constituent in Minneapolis. Today, 2617, while riding the eastbound Metro Green Line from East Bank Station to Prospect Park Station, 2 Metro Transit police officers boarded the train to check fare cards. They were joined by 3 to 4 Department of Homeland Security officers. I have never before seen Department of Homeland Security officers on routine patrol with Metro Transit officers. As you know, the community surrounding the University of Minnesota, where I rode the train, is home to a large Somali community as well as a large and diverse group of international students and scholars from around the globe. The presence of the Department of Homeland Security officers seemed an intentional effort at surveillance and intimidation. They did not look like they were in pursuit of a particular person. I surmised that they were simply riding along, waiting for passenger fare cards to show no payment so that ID could be checked and they could then further pursue anyone who seemed non-native to the U.S. It goes on with a little bit more detail. And I haven't necessarily verified this report at all, but it just shows, I think, a concern that we have. And I'm glad that the city is leading on this resolution, and I think that hopefully the other jurisdictions will look at us. But people who are paying attention to this and what the city of Minneapolis is doing, if you think other jurisdictions and other bodies should do this, please be involved and ask people to do that. Within the city, we don't only have Metro Transit officers and the county officers, we also have U of M police and park police. And there's highway patrol that come through the city as well. So there's a lot to worry about here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. On the resolution, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, and that item is approved. And I think Councilmember Cano has a staff direction that she was going to take us through, and that is our last action.
Thank you, Council Vice President Glenn, for this. So what I'm introducing right now is a staff direction that is authored by myself, by Councilmember Glenn and Councilmember Jacob Fry, and it reads the following. Directing the City Coordinator's Office to establish a Sanctuary City Task Force that will bring forward a set of recommendations to strengthen the city-level policies, programs, and resources the City of Minneapolis can offer to better protect and defend undocumented immigrant families from unfair deportation, our Muslim residents and other targeted groups from acts of bigotry and hate, and to defend the rights of refugees from unjust persecution. The task force shall include staff from the Neighborhood and Community Relations Department, the Minneapolis Police Department, the Intergovernmental Relations Department, the City Attorney's Office, the Departments of Communications, Finance, and Civil Rights. The task force shall create a work plan to integrate the recommendations presented by legal experts and immigrant leaders at today's February 7th, 2017 Intergovernmental Relations Committee and report back to this committee with an update on this work plan and their summary recommendations by March 31st of 2017. The second staff direction in this is directing the City Coordinator's Office to continue discussions with the Minneapolis Foundation and other funders in partnership with the Mayor's Office to create a local immigration legal defense fund designed in partnership with immigration service providers. Such a fund shall include city resources designated for immigration support in the 2017 budget. And the third item is directing, in cooperation with the mayor, the city attorney to review the president's January 2017 executive orders for the purpose of potential litigation and defense strategies to protect the rights of the city of Minneapolis and its residents. If I could just speak to it for a few minutes. I just wanted to talk about this staff direction and also take a few moments to thank all the elected officials that joined us this morning, State Representative Ray Dean, State Representative Ilhan Omar, as well as Congressman Ellison's staff, who are both here still, Mitra and Nikki. Thank you so much for your support. Our mayor, who joined us earlier. And I do want to recognize a couple of more people in the room. We have Peter Brown, who's been very active with the National Lawyers Guild and helping us to review our separation ordinance so that we can strengthen it and make it better. We are introducing that action this Friday at the full council meeting. I wanted to acknowledge Jennifer Godinez, who is the Associate Director of the Minnesota Education Equity Partnership, who works statewide on issues of racial equity in the schools. And we have been talking about how this issue right now is going to be so important to work with educational leaders across the state to ensure that our immigrant community statewide is uplifted and protected. I also wanted to acknowledge Nestor Gomez, who is in the room with SCIU State Council, a young DREAM Act activist who I met when he was in high school. So it's really nice to see you here and see your support. I know that we have our city staff here who have been very active on this issue, Jean Ranieri, our city lobbyist, and Mariano Espinosa, who was here earlier from the Neighborhood and Community Relations Department, who this weekend was in many rural towns, Medelia, St. James, Worthington, talking to a lot of those leaders about this movement for a statewide sanctuary provision. Thank you to our presenters today. I know some of them have already left, and I've worked with many of them for many years. With John Keller, him and I were part of the response team for the largest immigration rate that happened not too long ago. Maybe in my head, it's not too long ago. It was like 2006, where in Worthington, Minnesota, over 1,000 workers were taken away from the city and taken away from their families. So a couple of points on this staff direction. It's meant to really define and expand and deepen what we mean when we talk about a sanctuary city status. Currently, we have a separation ordinance, and that is a singular law in our books that, as our city attorney described, has certain provisions and certain limitations that I'm hoping we can expand. But this is about the broad body of work the city of Minneapolis can step up to lead and do to better ensure that our community members are protected. And I know that a lot of this language has focused on the impacts on the immigrant community and our Muslim residents and on the refugee community, but really this is going to impact Minneapolis as a whole. If these executive orders are successful, Minneapolis will fall to its knees. And we will fall to our knees because of all the immigrant entrepreneurs that will be gone that currently have businesses in our commercial corridors. The schools that remain open because of our immigrant kids and our immigrant population. The homes that have been bought and the rental apartments that are currently housing many of our immigrant and refugee communities, all of that might be gone. And so in a weird way, it's not just about them, but it's about us. And so I want to make sure that that lens and that perspective is clear. I also want to thank Council Vice President Glidden for her leadership in allowing us to have this conversation and in working very hard to put together the slate of speakers and helping us to get the word out about this important conversation. So in building a true sanctuary, that work will begin with the staff direction. I also wanted to say that on this Sunday, the 12th, at 4 p.m., we will be meeting at El Colegio Charter School to continue our conversations about a municipal ID. Is there a way the city of Minneapolis can move forward on municipal IDs to provide immigrant families and anyone in the city to have a way to identify themselves and reduce the chances of getting caught up in the web of legal challenges that the ACLU speaker talked about earlier this morning. So I encourage all of you to come. I encourage all of you to bring friends, family. It's going to be at El Colegio Charter School on Bloomington and I believe 42nd, it might be the intersection. And it's on Facebook, the event is, and so it'll be this Sunday the 12th at 4 p.m. And that's part 2 of the initial community organizing meeting that my office co-hosted with Navigate and many other immigrant advocates from 2 weeks ago. So we are very rich in our people power, and I think that we have a lot of work to do and a lot of hand-holding to do along the way because there will be more and more of these challenges coming our way. So with that, I would love to either hear further discussion or take a vote on this staff direction.
So I will take that as Councilmember Kano has moved the staff direction. Discussion on the staff direction. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Councilmember Kano for the staff direction. And I'm very supportive of it and would like my name on there as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And with that, I will call, I don't see other discussion, so all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, and that item is approved. Thank you very much. So with that, thank you. So with that, I believe that we have concluded our business for today. Again, I really want to thank community members, all of our presenters who were here, and I would say also a large range of city staff who have been here to listen to the comments from community. So thank you, and we are adjourned.